Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the broadcast this evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. It's a pleasure to see you. And I hope that our friends have come back from New Year holiday back with us on the platform.
Yes, they have, sir, and I'm sure they are getting ready to participate in the session today. I can already see a comment online. Can't wait to listen to this session. How about you? Wow, 80th session at Prof's 80. Uh, so it looks like that 80th thing is not going away in a hurry at all, sir.
Not too soon. Not too soon.
Yes, and to our viewers, welcome to the program this evening. Please do share the link right away. There is a button just below your screen. Just hit the share it with your friends. It's going to be an exciting time this evening because I have a surprise question for Prof. Uh,
Oh,
but I will keep that till
mm,
later, sir.
mm.
I will keep that. But for
Oh
now,
boy.
sir, let us start with where we stopped last week. We were going to take this last week, but we ran out of time. And that is the issue of sanctions in Mali, and the fact that ECOWAS had put sanctions in place. But now we're hearing that not just ECOWAS, the EU is now also likely to have sanctions in place, maybe towards the end of January, is what we're hearing. But it seems to me that it is the people that are suffering in Mali. Once again, with this new development of further sanctions, what is your take on Mali? What is the way out from what is going on there, sir?
Um, there is nothing happening in Mali that we should not have expected. The moment you mentioned the EU, I would have added the United Nations Security Council to uh, 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 assist the or at least to applaud ECOWAS move, and it was blocked by China and Russia. We've discussed the French factor in Mali a few times. The French are not happy about being kicked out of one of their former colonies. And because if that move succeeds, it may spark off um, same moves in other territories. And recall that I did say on this program that the French have the largest gold reserves in their central bank, and yet they don't have gold mines. Mali has one of the largest gold mines in the world, and yet Mali doesn't have uh, 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 any gold reserves in its bank. That must be telling you something. And now that the French have been kicked out of Mali, replaced by a Russian technical military group, the French are not happy about that. And believe me, the French influence in ECOWAS is still pretty strong, simply because the Anglophone countries don't really see behind the screen. They don't see behind the screen. And there are more French speaking countries in ECOWAS than than the Anglophone countries, and the French-speaking countries will push whatever France asks them to push. So I see the French hand in all of this. And the moment I see the French hand on an African issue, believe me, I get very uneasy. It cannot be for the interest of the African country that is involved. Goes back to your straight question. Will the Malian people not suffer? And presumably the answer would be all these years that the French have been there, have the people not been suffering? In fact, every government that is overthrown in Mali, look behind it, the people will be protesting that there is no security. And that's why the people, not the government, turned against French forces. You've been here for all these years, and yet the jihadists are still creating problems for us. What exactly then are you doing in our country? So the people have been suffering, and unfortunately in politics, it is the people who suffer. It will not be unique to Mali, I mean, all over the world. Right from the time of the Roman Empire, there's a saying by Seneca, the Roman philosopher, that the rich rip off the poor, the military coming to ensure that the poor gets ripped off. The government is there to do the bidding of the rich. The constant in all of this is, well, I don't want to upset anybody, but I remember coming across this is saying that God loved the poor. He created so many of them. So, but the poor will always be shortchanged, believe me, in any government system, sanctions or no sanctions.
Now, I want to press the point about the gold mine issue you raised. Isn't that symptomatic of a lot of uh, African deals that we hear about, which they ultimately come up as deals that shortchange the people and maybe enrich some in government? And I wonder if it is as a result of poor leadership and not necessarily the French taking advantage of Mali in this particular scenario. What are your thoughts on that perspective, sir?
No, you asked me a question on Mali, and I particularized my answer. What you're talking about, again, we've discussed it on this program many, many times. Africa is being ripped off by every non-African power simply because when a nationalistic leader pops up in Africa, they make sure they get rid of him. The fault is not in our stars. The fault is in the use of military power, of invincible power, when I say invincible power, you don't see the intelligence agents who roam the four corners of Africa and who interfere in our government system, who build relationships into our military establishment. The military will get trained abroad in any case, thereby, build links with foreign military and intelligence agents who then, when they decide to get rid of a government, plant the idea in their head that you can do better, will help you to do better, to run, your nation. And so, Nkrumah gets overthrown, Murtala Mohammed gets overthrown, Lumumba got overthrown and got killed in the process. We know all the agents, because they said the truth is like smoke. Eventually, it comes out. It may take years, but agents retire and start writing books. So we know. And so that is why don't blame the Malians. And I also keep saying it, don't blame the ordinary people in Africa. It is because foreign governments, foreign agents make sure that the best and the brightest and the nationalistic ones of us don't get to power. And when they get to power, these people have perfected the art of assassinating them or overthrowing them, starting with Sylvanus Olympio in Togo. We must never forget that historical fact.
Thank you, sir. But still along the same lines, sir, let's go to South Africa, where we're seeing an interesting scenario playing out. Amazon, a very big technology company, has decided to invest in Africa, but they're choosing to invest in a place where has been classed as heritage land, very beautiful landscapes in the area. Amazon has decided to put a very large data facility, and the inhabitants are fighting against that. They're taking it to court. And, sir, from a UK perspective, we preserve a lot of our buildings. We call them listed buildings. You can't change the face of it too much and all of that. But it seems like in South Africa now, we're giving away the beautiful landscapes. What is your take on this, sir?
It's not unique to South Africa. Do you know that in Nigeria, the house where the first prime minister was kidnapped and taken away to be killed is now an office for the police? The house where Nigerian first Minister of Finance was taken away to be killed during the first coup was donated by the Nigerian government for ECOWAS to use as its headquarters in Lagos. I could cite several examples just to buttress your point that we don't seem to have any historical values to our history. Now, what's happened in South Africa, even the concept of heritage lands, was because even during the apartheid period, South Africa had white government, and they have concept of historical heritage, preservation of things, where Shaka di Zulu fought a war, where maybe Setewayo, another Zulu warrior, got killed, another kind of thing. But you don't have that in the rest of, we don't have that in the rest of Africa. So Amazon comes in now and decides that that's what it's going to do. Why is it that it is the people in that area who have to rise up? Isn't there a government in South Africa? So somebody gave them that permit. Can you imagine a government in Britain giving a permit to a business to go to Stonehenge and knock down those rocks and start putting up buildings there? It won't happen, but it will happen in Africa. Again, why? Maybe because we don't have a sense of history, or we do have a sense of history. We are just pushed aside. Don't forget that the present president of Africa was on the board of the gold mines after his ANC days. And don't forget that several years ago, the same apartheid police, now diluted by Africans being brought in, shot, opened fire on African miners who were demonstrating about the conditions of service. And Ramaphosa was sitting on the board. Nothing happened to him. So in a way, again, we've discussed this when we were discussing what Mandela meant to South Africa, what the trap de Klerk set for Mandela, and he walked into it. Why they had to kill Chris Hani? Because he would have seen through the shenanigans and the traps that de Klerk was setting. And of course, Zuma, when he was having problem about, selling of the Commonwealth, state property, he asked Thabo Mbeki, Mandela, and who have you, to speak up about the source of their wealth, while those of them who were sent into the hinterland to try to pacify people were not rewarded, and that this was his own opportunity to reward himself. He said all of this. So I'm not surprised as to what is going on. I just pray that African governments, if they can, because I'm about to contradict myself now, if they can, will not give permits to foreign institutions to come and desecrate the land. I will remind you that it is under the same Ramaphosa that an agreement was signed with a vaccine producing company to produce vaccines in South Africa, but those vaccines must be exported to Europe, while South Africa and Africa were undergoing vaccine shortage. That time we called it vaccine apartheid. But who signed the agreement? Who did? The government.
There's a question here, sir, on YouTube, literally just come in. Without bottom-up revolt, can Africa call bluff of these major powers when Tollgate massacre of youth took place by government apparatus? Is Africa stuck between our leaders and the foreign powers?
Well, some of us have been had been preaching the need for a bottom-up revolution in Africa. And we didn't get anywhere. Some of us lost jobs because of that, because the foreign government, I think I said it on this program maybe 2 programs ago, cannot tolerate nationalistic African leaders. Not even just African leaders, nationalistic leaders in the third world. If you have escaped that trap, like India, like Pakistan, but most of us are just not strong enough, to remove that yoke. In the 60s and in the 70s, even those of us who were anti-colonial were not united, because those who called themselves the socialists, following the book of Lenin and Marx, regarded the nationalists as people not to be trusted. Those who were following the Western government also regarded nationalists as people not to be trusted. So in a way, the people who could have fought that battle by anchoring the demands on their nation ended up being bashed from both sides. Now, now that socialism is dead in the world, where are the socialists who controlled our universities at that time? Yes.
Sir, on that point, let me throw this question to you, sir. Now, permit me, sir. Over the last few weeks of your 80th birthday celebration, I saw so many articles in the press. But there is one particular one that caught my attention. And because you talked about socialists, is why I'm going to bring this up, sir. And I will read something to you from one of those articles. So this particular one talks about your idea of a black bomb. And it says this. It says, on Akinyemi's black bomb suggestion, a Nigerian newspaper said Akinyemi's position is totally unacceptable in the first place. Professor Akinyemi wanted the black bomb so that in case there is an outbreak of nuclear war, black people can lump one or two of their own and die satisfied. And they went on to say a few other things. And they said Nigeria cannot even contemplate the use of such a bomb in a war of liberation. My question to you, sir, what is your position today on this black bomb issue and on the critics of the time? Where do you stand today, sir?
This was the surprise you were going to spring on me.
Absolutely, sir. But you triggered it by talking about socialists there. So I thought I might as well throw it in at this point.
Well, number one, thank you for being kind, because you've avoided using the phraseology of some of my critics. I suppose you think, well, you shouldn't throw insults at an 80-year-old man, because I remember the episode very, very well. I remember being told that I was out of my mind, that I had gone, well, they couldn't say I had gone senile. I was in my 40s at that time. But they used such crude words to criticize me, to attack me. Of course, it is very well known that when your critics cannot reason, they become abusive. But I have always held on to that philosophy that civility is not an act of weakness, and crudity is not a sign of strength. My critics were crude, and some of the language used, you will wonder, are these people really lecturers in the university? Are these people really top-notch columnists and editors in key newspapers in the country? Let me use an illustration to project my ideas, my reply to your question. When John F. Kennedy, said, I hereby propose that America should send men to the moon and bring them back in this decade. We should do this and other things, not because they are easy, but because they are difficult. I think he died, he was assassinated about a year after that. But America did send men to the moon before the decade was over and brought them back. He didn't say they should do it the following day. He didn't say they should do it the following week. He didn't say they should do it the following month. He challenged the United States. And a reasoning society, his best brains, did not say Kennedy was out of his mind. They rallied around to that idea. And you then had planning backwards. If we're going to do it before the decade was over, what must we do tomorrow? What must we do next year? What must we do next? Whatever. The United Arab Emirates, I think, had just sent, last year, sent a rocket to go to mass. When the leader, the ruler of that country called his advisors and told them, you know, I think by 2011 or is it 2021? Can't remember now. We should send an Arab rocket satellite to Mars. He didn't say we should do it next week. People didn't say, but we're all desert. Most of our people ride camels. We can't do it. He set a target. He gave them a vision. And they started working towards that. And lo and behold, they achieved it. So when I said Nigeria, let me step back one step. When Pakistan and India decided to produce atomic weapons, they didn't say, look at the percentage of our poor people. We have problems between Hindus and Muslims, and there are cracks in our society that we haven't dealt with. We still have probably 70%, if not more, of our people who are still below the poverty line. Pakistan did not say, we have Talibans, we have jihadists. In fact, we've lost so many prime ministers, assassinated, overthrown. We can't do it. You must be mad. But when, and I'm not just the only one who has suffered this, when you get a Nigerian who is trying to provide a vision by which the country should steer its governance, people who don't think in any way, who don't reason, they come after him using the kind of crude language that I was subjected to. I didn't say we must produce the atomic weapons the following day, or we must produce the atomic weapons the following month. I didn't even give a target date. Maybe it could have been a decade. Maybe it could have been 2 decades. But let us begin. That's what they didn't want to hear. Most of those who came after me were the so-called socialists in the universities, in the trade unions. Where are the socialists in Nigeria today? Where are they? Most of them have disappeared to the United States and are teaching in the universities there. Not one peep of socialism now coming out of their mouths. South Africa is flooded with Nigerian academics. They've abandoned the country that they tried and succeeded in derailing. And then you had the people in the press. Now, I must be careful here because I owe my success in the Institute of International Affairs and as a minister, partly to the publicity and the support I got from those 2 institutions. And I'm grateful for that. But the fact is, on this particular matter of the black bomb, they didn't even have a vision. Yes.
But, sir, is that vision still relevant today, given the view we see, not just from the United States, but this view on let us reduce the number of nuclear warheads we have and things like that? Is it still relevant today?
Of course it is relevant. Why do you think nobody pays any attention to you? To Nigeria, I mean, on the international scene. Yes, part of it is question of leadership, but the other part is what have they got? In international relations, the bottom line is power. People will treat you with respect, not because you import the largest volume of champagne or that most of your elite go on holidays abroad, whether in Dubai, London, Washington, or wherever. That doesn't earn you respect. Actually, it means you have money to spend. Come and spend the money here. They respect you and pay attention to you because of your capacity to influence events and at the bottom line, to protect yourself. The insults meted out to us, Nigerians abroad, they won't try it with Indians. They won't try it with Pakistanis. Of course, we know they won't try with Israelis. And there are probably one other African country that has a secret nuclear arsenal. Was it a coincidence that it was shortly after they got Gaddafi to surrender to abandon his nuclear ambition and surrender the equipment that he has had to develop nuclear capability, that they then went after him and took him out in such a disgraceful manner? We know all the people who did it now. It's no longer a secret. But is it a coincidence? So, what people will say now is, with the problems Nigeria faces with Boko Haram, with bandits, with terrorists, are you still saying this? And that's why I then reminded you earlier on that Pakistan and India also face this kind of, features, cracks in their system that they are still working to erase. But that didn't stop them. Once they decided that they needed nuclear capability for reasons of their own strategic issues. I have said somewhere before, and I think people are starting, actually, I've read in some other places, that the reason Nigeria is in such a mess is because the powers in the world don't want a black power to emerge in the world for racial reasons. And that's why Mandela said, until Nigeria resolves its domestic problems, blacks will never be recognized and respected in the world. That he didn't say his own country, South Africa. He said it is only Nigeria that can pull up the black race and get for the black race what the black race deserves. You're not going to get it by selling crude oil and importing refined petroleum when you can build refineries and develop technical. There are Nigerians in the United States with first-class brains and who are being used in the United States in the National Aeronautics Space Agencies and so on, because their talents are recognized there. But here is the same people who will join agitation to have their own states that they cannot fund, who will come after you if you have a better vision. They are the same people.
Wow. Wow. Uh, sir, let me just move to Sudan, sir, because it's a very tough topic, sir. The more I process what you've said about this thing, I feel that even if Nigerians were to come up with a vision right now to push forward on building this capability, we can see the sanctions that Iran is facing because the United States believes that it's about to weaponize what it's got. So it feels to me like if we're going to embark on it now, it's unlikely that it's going to deliver any significant value in the short term.
No, I mean, it may not do it in the short term, but, and that's why I talk about planning. Part of your strategy will be to make no enemies of the people who have sufficient capability to derail you. You will leave the United States alone, you leave Great Britain alone, you will leave France alone. You will turn inward. And that, I mean, it's there was a time when we were trying to repair our relationship with Israel. The Israelis wanted Nigeria to re-establish diplomatic relations. And I was called by the president of my country and told that that was my assignment. I can give names of all the people who were involved on the other side. And since I was given a free hand, with the permission of my president, I went surreptitiously to Israel under an assumed name. Although I was the foreign minister, but that would have sent too much alarm bells ringing. So I went as an ordinary individual. The trip, the whole thing on the Israeli side was moderated by the Mossad. So it wasn't that I turned up with a fake passport. Yes, I turned up with a fake passport, but a fake passport approved by my government, and Mossad knew about the fake passport. Anyway, the negotiation that took place, I told the Israeli government, I said, the only thing we have against you in Nigeria is that you have helped South Africa to develop nuclear capability. They haven't got to the stage of weaponizing it. I said, but we all know it. I said, so all I want from you to be able to sell this is to help us as well. And the of Prime Minister of Israel said, agreed. And he turned to the Mossad agent who was taking minutes, put it in the memorandum of agreement that we agree to help Nigeria to do this. Okay, that memorandum never saw the light of day because my president, for reasons best known to him, thought it was premature. But after I was removed as minister, my colleague who took over from me began, with approval of the government of the day, announced re-establishment of diplomatic relations with Israel, but not based on that memorandum of understanding. So they got it for nothing. They got it for nothing. And I can assure you there are still governments all over the world who will be prepared, depending on how things are put to them, and provided we are not in a war situation with any of the countries that can derail us. Yes, they will look the other way. Governments look the other way all the time. The problem of Iran is it was fighting a war on too many fronts, while at the same time trying to develop a nuclear capability. That doesn't work.
Thank you, sir. You've touched on Israel there, talked on the United States there. Um, Both those countries happen to be in Sudan, trying to resolve this post-war crisis, post-coup crisis that's taking place there. Now, the Israelis have not really come out publicly to say anything, but
They never, they
yes,
never.
sir. Yes, sir. But we have two senior U.S. diplomats that are trying to work with the government there. Why would Israel and the U.S. be in Sudan trying to do something in Sudan? What is important there?
Because Sudan is located in the Horn of Africa. That Horn of Africa is surrounded by a lot of countries whose survival uh, is dependent on peace or their ability to control, to dominate their environment such that things will not happen there that will be detrimental to their own existential status. You've mentioned, right now, you've mentioned the United States and you've mentioned Israel. Well, let me throw in a few other friends. You haven't mentioned Saudi Arabia. You haven't mentioned Egypt. And you haven't mentioned Iran. You see, the first four countries that we threw into the basket don't want an Iranian influence in the Horn of Africa, because that presence will pose an existential threat to them. So whatever they can do to stabilize the situation in Sudan that will not allow Iran to be a major player there, they will do so. And don't forget that there are American military presence bases in the Horn of Africa. The Chinese also are now trying to establish a base there. So really, the Horn of Africa is a place to watch. You are going to get the big players on the international scene. Some of them will be there. Oh no, all of them will be there for their own interests. Some of them will be there perhaps to help the Sudanese, as long as the Sudanese then don't end up jeopardizing their own interests. But believe me, each one of those countries that I have mentioned have interest to be protected if peace returns to Sudan. And not peace at any cost, but peace without Iranian influence.
We have about 5 minutes to go. Time has gone so quickly this evening. Um, I wanted to talk about the United States, to look at President Biden after 1 year. But I think I'll leave that till next week, and end today with a call by the new Afghan Prime Minister for the government in Afghanistan to now be officially recognized by other governments around the world. He's effectively saying it's about time now that you governments recognize us. What is your take on that?
He's not likely to get it. I mean, this is a government that just last week, its soldiers, policemen say it is government policy that individuals should not own uh, um, um, iPhones, and therefore ordered all Iranians, all Afghanistans, to come and drop their phones. And the video going around showed the soldiers marching on those phones. That's a regressive government. That's a regressive government. And yet you want to be recognized. I don't think they are going to get it, because a lot of governments are very upset with Afghanistan. I think the understanding was that there would be movement on all sides. And the unfortunate thing about Afghanistan is the Taliban forgets that there are other groups in Afghanistan who are opposed to them and who can be used by foreign governments to create problems for the Taliban. They are behaving as if they have the capability to occupy the whole country and dominate the environment. I'm sorry, the Taliban is wrong. They haven't shown the capability to dominate the Afghan environment. So you will have palliatives like money through NGOs for women, children, I'm not even sure that the Taliban is going to allow girls to go to school, girls' education. Because, in fact, we also think that the Taliban is a united organization. It isn't. They also have hardliners within the organization because it's like it's a coalition, like it's a movement. Um, and there are also soft liners, and they have to be moving. They have to be uh, trying to reach compromise as they move along. From time to time, you will get the hardliners who will say, no, this is our policy. And the rest of the world will say, absolutely not. We are not accepting that. I mean, in dealing with the rest of the world, the Taliban hasn't shown uh, the kind of sense that one expects. But then, you know, the Pakistan also has its own spoon stirring that pot there. And the Chinese are looking at them, and the Russians. Don't forget, Russia once invaded Afghanistan. The Russians through Kyrgyzstan and all these stands who surround Afghanistan are also looking at them. And, when foreign governments concentrate their attention on you, it's not for your own good. And I'm afraid the Taliban, they haven't shown that they know what they are doing. They haven't.
Thank you very much for that, sir. Um, okay, I'm going to give you, sir, a choice here, sir, on one question, which
Mm.
might be a lighter note question, but also with a lot of impact. Do you love tennis, sir? I know you used to play tennis some time back.
Yes, I used to play. There was nothing I didn't try to. There was nothing I didn't try to do. Um, I tried horseback riding until I had a disagreement with the horse. I didn't, unlike what is being said around, I didn't fall off the horse. The horse tripped, and we separated, and then we got to be united. Yes, I tried to play tennis, um, just like I tried flying, learning to fly. I tried to play tennis until uh, I had problems with my neck. So I've abandoned all the sports I tried. I've
Okay, sir.
abandoned all. Hmm.
Where I was going with that question, sir,
I know
is
where you. I know where you. I know where you are going. Hmm.
so
I'm listening.
I wanted to find out if you would have gone to Australia for a tournament without your COVID vaccination.
That's a tricky question. Number one, I've had three. I've got the booster jab, so I wouldn't do what what's his name, Dovik. I
Djokovic.
wouldn't do. I wouldn't do what he did. No matter your talent, God gave talent to the world, whether as astronauts or doctors or engineers or physicists or sportsmen. If each one of us start claiming an exception to the law because of our talent, we will end up with a world in chaos. He is just a talented tennis player. He's not above the law. At the same time, I don't think the Australian government handled it very well. And therefore, I like now the French approach. No, I like the French approach. No vaccination, no exception. You are not coming in to play tennis in France. And I think that's what the Australians should have done from the word. None of this nonsense about, well, except to get medical. Anybody will manage to get medical exceptions. So to me, it's been a tragedy of errors on all sides. And I hope Serbia will just allow the matter to rest rather than this implied threat to retaliate when Australian now come to Serbia, Australian athletes come to Serbia. I hope they just let the matter rest. Dovecek, or whatever you call him, is a bad case to use to determine your foreign policy.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, sir. And thank you to our viewers. We will be back next week, same time, 7 p.m. UK, 8 p.m. Nigeria. And I can see some people from other parts of the world. Pick your times from there. Thank you so much for joining. And we look forward to another week. Thank you very much, sir. And that will be it for tonight. Thank you, sir. Bye bye, sir. And bye to our guests.